Welcome to the Growth Mindset Podcast with me, Sam Harris, your host. I invite fascinating humans from all walks of life to share their wisdom and unpack their mindsets and formulas for growth. Nice. I wanted to maybe move on to some sort of a different topic, although obviously loving consciousness, I can go on about that all day. Being a CEO, and so you started a few startups, you worked in like that area and then like massive corporates, and how did you convince people that you were the right person to become a CEO of a massive corporate? And then how did you turn it around? And then how did you sell it? These are just some things that all are not experiences that I've ever had, and I'm interested.
That's a good question. Let's see. While I was general manager, or chief operating officer, or CEO of various smaller units, only once was I CEO of a publicly traded company. That was Network Solutions. That was my last business gig. And prior to that, I was chief technology officer for Thomson-Reuters. In those days, it was Thomson. Now, Thomson-Reuters, at the time, we were about $8 billion a year multinational, 50,000 employees, about 5,000 of whom were technologists of one sort or another. And so I was sort of at least dotted line responsible for all those folks. I also had a consulting division with 600 or 700 people, and I had a tools division. I had a research lab, and so it was a cool job. And I was also de facto internet strategist for the company and helped drag them onto the internet successfully, maybe 18 months faster than our competitors. And so I like to say, you don't have to be faster than the bear, you just have to be faster than the other hikers. And so we were faster than our three competitors. And so we went from number 4 to number 1 in about 10 years at Thomson in the area of professional publishing, which was the core of what we did. So anyway, I was very happy working there at Thomson. Planning to work. The company was very honorable and ethical. It was, while publicly traded, it was 65% owned by the Thomson family, who are very good people. Let me call out to the Thomsons. High ethics. They do business right. At least they did back in my day. And so it was somewhat just pure serendipity. I got a call from a headhunter saying, Network Solutions. Oh yeah, I know those useless motherfuckers, right? Well, they're looking for a new CEO, and you're on the list of 60 people that they want to interview. And I go, well, isn't that special? Well, it turned out that they're 5 minutes away from my office. And so I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll come over for an interview, but I want a free lunch, right? So I figure if I'm going to go over there and be interviewed by somebody for this CEO job, at least I want a free lunch out of it. And frankly, if their office hadn't been 5 minutes away, I probably wouldn't even have gone on the interview, right? It was not necessarily something I was interested in, but I did. And I guess I must have done okay, because they called me back for the round of 20 and then the round of 5. And then I was the semifinalist. And then I think I actually went through 9 rounds of interviews. And truthfully, because I didn't give a shit. I just was myself. The other thing I did, which after the first round, I decided I was going to do this. I said, I'm going to turn the interviews around. I'm going to interview them. And I'm going to assume I have the job. And I'm just going to try to extract from them what needs to be done. And of course, I also did some research, and I learned even more scary stories about how fucked up it was and how powerful but dangerous their situation was. And so I literally started turning the interviews around and asking them questions. In fact, by the time the 3rd or 4th round of interview, I would say 75% of the interview was me questioning them and sort of lightly proposing possible solutions to their problems, but digging more and more and more into why they were having the problems that they were having. It was amazing. It was almost like I was a hired psychologist, and some of these folks who were, either board members or senior members of the management team really opened up and told me all kinds of stuff they probably shouldn't have. And so that I had 4 or 5 pages of notes, and I kept adding to it and adding to it and adding to it. And so by the time I got to the second to last interview, which was actually the critical one, with a really smart member of their board, I actually had a full vision of what I thought the company needed. And I just launched into it when he asked me, why were you interested in this job? Or some bullshit setup question. I just off to the races. And basically for 90 minutes, I laid out my vision of what this company needed. And that seemed to have done the job. And they made me the offer soon thereafter, which I turned down, as it turned out, because they wouldn't meet all of my demands. And so I said, sorry, no. And they left. About 2 weeks later, they came back. I figured they probably would, because I had a good suspicion who the second choice was. Not vastly more impressive than that motherfucker. And so they came back 2 weeks later and said, all right, Jim, we'll give you what you want, goddammit. And so anyway, that's how I got the job. And it was a mess because it was a government-granted monopoly in the domain name system. And we all know monopolists, unless they're highly regulated, can get lazy and stupid, and they managed to do a fair amount of both. Now, there were some great people there, don't get me wrong. There's some wonderful technologists. And interestingly, our accounting and our legal were really, really good. But the technical operation stuff, customer service was terrible. The sales operation was pretty good, but it was way too small. The political operation was too small and too kiss ass. So, I basically just had to hop in with 2 feet and just start, slinging shit around, bringing good people in, really much better people than they had in a number of these areas. Put together a strategic 5-year plan, completely changed how we related to the Wall Street analysts that followed the company, completely changed their thinking about the company, convinced them that the real story here was a cash flow story rather than a GAAP accounting story. And once I started doing quarterly meetings with the Wall Street analysts, our stock price started going up. I resolved all the issues with the government by being a brutal asshole and testifying in front of Congress and scaring the fuck out of people, where I decided I was going to be Dr. Strangelove and convinced them that I would be willing to press the button if they pushed me too far, and got it all moving in the right direction in about 9 months, amazingly enough. We did the biggest secondary stock offering in internet history up to that point. We raised $2.2 billion, which was good to top up our reserves, even though we were very profitable already. And soon thereafter, we started getting acquisition inquiries, and I kept saying no to them until I got the price we wanted, and then we sold the company. Done. In and out in 1 year.
Wow. Cool. You make it sound so easy.
Well, the key is just fucking do it. That's always been my thing. Velocity, right? Some people tell you, come into a situation, listen for 6 months. And I go, fuck, we'd have been dead if I'd listened for 6 months. Within a week, I was starting to take serious action. In 6 weeks, I entirely reorganized the company. I had settled all our problems with the government within 3 months, which they'd been trying to settle for 3 years, but they were just too nice. You have to be an asshole to get that done. I don't mind being an asshole if I have to be. Brought in many new people very rapidly. Just do it, right? Don't be afraid to do it. And I like to quote Hunter Thompson, actually. Faster and faster until the thrill of speed exceeds the fear of death.
Oh. I like that. That's really cool.
Yeah, I could give plenty of examples from my business career where velocity was allowed little guys to beat big guys, or allow one set of big guys to beat other sets of big guys.
So yeah, which would you say would be your favorite story then of the many stories that you could give?
This was back when I was managing 3 business units in Thomson, 3 little kind of sub companies. And this one was tiny, like $4 or $5 million a year business, but it's nicely profitable. Anyway, one of the categories they competed in was a software product for stockbrokers. Doesn't matter what it is, but we were number 4 in that category. And you don't want to be number 4 in a category like that. And so when I took over these business units, I dug into them, learned a little bit about them, found out what their strengths and weaknesses were. And I then looked at who were these competitors in this little category. And they were all small independent companies who had better products than we did, but the products hadn't changed in a long while, and they were getting a little long in the tooth. It was clear these companies didn't have a whole lot of capacity to develop new products. And so I said, there's an opportunity to leapfrog all these products by a bit and be better. But that's not enough because they're entrenched and the customers are fairly slow to evolve. But there's a whole bunch of products right around this product that are augments and supplements and complements, et cetera. And these little companies that we're competing with, they do not have the product management capability. They don't have the technical capability. They don't have the marketing capability to run out a whole series of products in this category. So what we conceptualized, me driving the business unit manager, who went on to have a fabulous career. This guy is tremendous business talent, 25 years old at the time. And we could develop what we called the product machine gun strategy in this category, where we would do a leapfrog product that was better than everybody else. But more importantly, we'd keep cranking products all around this category in a way that these other companies, there was no chance in hell they could compete. And so we went from a week number 4, and in a period of 3 or 4 years up by then, I moved on to do the CTO thing. So I was no longer directly involved, but I just kind of watched it for fun. We literally ended up destroying all 3 of our competitors and buying them for salvage value in a period of about 4 years. And so this went from a $1 million a year business to about a $10 million or $12 million a year business running at a 50% profit margin. And we acquired all of our competitors for peanuts. And we did it all by intentionally throwing the velocity lever as far forward as we possibly could.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah, seldom is velocity the wrong thing to do, as long as you don't lose coherence doing it. And of course, that's hard to maintain coherence. And you don't want to drive velocity past the level of coherence. So you make sure that your business unit is not, the wheels aren't coming off, right? You want it to be wobbling, but you don't want it to be coming off. And so that's, I call that a top executive skill, is what's the maximum velocity you can get out of your organization. And of course, you can improve your organization to get more velocity out of it. Get rid of as many meetings as possible, as many bureaucracies as possible. Things that don't need doing, stop doing them. All those are things that slow down velocity. And of course, have a decision-making apparatus that can be brisk. It's not afraid to make decisions. So there's some things you can do to engineer your business to make it able to operate at higher velocity. But then you also have to have the will to drive it. It's real easy not to go for velocity. Life is more stressful under velocity. So you need both the capacity to sustain velocity and the will to use it.
Yeah, there's some really good principles, and obviously, there's a whole work-life balance. You should be able to keep your energy up and things. But yeah, it's so easy to kind of lose velocity when you're not too sure and making decisions and things.
Yeah, we speak to that one. That's one of my favorites. Yeah, let me talk about work-life balance. I think this is a real important one. I had a very interesting, exciting business career, and I sometimes would ask kids today, God damn it, to guess how many days I spent in the office on the weekends during my business career. I get numbers like 1,000, right? Well, the actual answer is about 30. So about one day a year, I'd go into the office on the weekend. And keep in mind, this was in the days before remote work was really much feasible. And if you wanted to do much, you had to go to the office. And so while I worked a long day, I would probably work 12-hour days when I'm working on anything hard. I consciously did not work on weekends. And part of this was an agreement with my wife and mine. She's very wise in many ways. And, we committed to the fact that, yes, I could be a workaholic during the week, but we would have a real life on weekends. I learned from my very first mentor in the entrepreneurial space. My first startup was with a co-founder. I was 28 and he was 59, right? And he'd done 3 startups previously. And one of his rules was every senior person in the company must take 2 weeks vacation a year, 2 continuous weeks. And oh, by the way, don't check in at all. It was twofold theory. One, it really did allow you to collect your thoughts and clear your mind from all of the just buzz of everyday work. But here is the second one. He was pretty explicit about this too. It also forced you to hire people who were good enough that they could get by for 2 weeks without your direct supervision. And I think both of those were hugely important in terms of being able to maintain this high level of intensity for long periods of time. One, have enough away time that you're not just burned to a crisp. And the second, hire people good enough that you can delegate an awful lot of the work to them. So that's how you get work-life balance and still be a heavy hitter, and make shit happen. 7x24, always on shit, that's a bad idea. Don't be taking your Slack home with you, right? When it's 5:30 or 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, whenever you're going to shut it off, just shut it off. I talk to people, oh, my fucking Slack beeped at 2 o'clock in the morning. I go, well, one, why is your fucking phone in your bedroom? Stupid ass idea. Leave your phone out in the kitchen. And even if it does beep, there's no law that says you got to answer it, God damn it. And just, establish as a social norm that only a complete fucking moron is going to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to look at their phone because their Slack beeped at them.
Nice. Cool. Okay. So, a few roundup questions. Kind of relates to our things about memory, actually. One of the things I like to ask is, what's one of your earliest ever memories?
I have a quite specific first memory, which is sitting in the living room of the apartment that we lived in, my parents lived in Northern Virginia. And this would have had to have been I was about 18 months old, maybe coming on 2 years. And I was putting wooden blocks into a wooden mailbox. And that was the first memory I had. I've verified with my parents that it actually happened. It wasn't a fan of memory. So, that's about the first memory I had. And then the second one, I was probably about 2. Apparently, I was famous for this. I was walking up a hill in front of the apartment building. I still picture it, the red brick apartments on one side, park on the other, and cars parked on both sides. And apparently, even when I was 2, I could tell the adults what brand of car it was. And I loved doing it. Point Chevrolet, Ford, Chrysler, And apparently I was quite infallible at the age of 2. And I can recall walking up the hill with my mother and doing that. So that was about the second earliest memory. And that's from about age of 2.
Cool. That's nice. It's quite young. And then what is one of the kindest things someone has ever done for you?
What's the kindest things they ever done for me? That's a good question. Kindest thing. Well, my wife does kind things all the time. And so it's certainly something she did. She's just a kind person. I'll just leave that at that. It's something my wife did.
Yeah.
I'm going to...
I like details. Okay, no worries. Thank you very much. This has been a wonderful interview.
We'll have been married 40 years here in another couple of weeks.
Oh, wow,
so,
congrats. It's
it has worked.
My parents' 40th anniversary this year as well. Love is in the air. Isn't this beautiful? Cool. Well, yeah, thank you so much for the time. This has been really fascinating. And if anyone wants to hear more from Jim, he runs the Jim Rutt Show, which is a brilliant source of fascinating conversations on all things, generally consciousness and AI and Game B and just stuff going on in the world that you should probably be more aware about. And is there anything else you want to promote, or like ways to get in touch, etc.?
Yeah, if people want to learn more about Game B, go to game-b.org and request a membership. And when they ask where you heard about it, say you heard it on Sam Harris's podcast, and you can put in parentheses if you want, not the famous song Sam Harris, but you don't have to do that, because this is the only Sam Harris podcast I've been on recently. And I will hire one of the admins. I'll give them the word to approve your membership on our Game B home site. You can hang out with the Game B crew.
Sweet. Nice. And
help save the world.
Yeah.
A good thing to do.
100%. And you can also join us on Syncify, a social podcast app where Jim will be there.
Well, thanks, Sam. This has been fun. You had some great, interesting questions.
Oh, my pleasure.
Congratulations on listening to a whole episode of the Growth Mindset podcast. Before you race into another podcast, try pausing. Ask yourself, what have you learned? What could you change? How will you make that change happen? Did you press pause? Knowledge is useless without action. What did you learn? What should you change? And how will you make that change happen? You can tell us what you learned by contacting us through the website, growthmindsetpodcast.com, and feel free to connect with us or our guests, or just peruse the show notes. Our Instagram is @growthmindsetpodcast, or follow me @SamJamSnaps for a daily reminder to stop using Instagram. If you enjoy random acts of kindness and want to support the show, you can support us on Patreon or leave us a review on iTunes, and you'll make me very happy. And with that, keep learning and keep growing.